Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Money in the Lot, My FM 101.3 and the Holliston Cable Access TV with your host, Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group.
Absolutely.
And I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial, and we're joined again in studio with Christian Bidet
Take a breath.
from the Holliston Cable Access
We have an hour.
TV. We have
No rush.
We've roughly an hour. We also just and it's funny. So I rarely do I listen to the show a lot, like when it's actually playing.
Well, because you did the show.
Well,
you know what's coming.
So I was listening to a show the other day, and the lead in with Ray. So for those of you who are just joining us, like right now, you've just heard Ray kind of give us the lead in. I mean, it brings and the Warren Zevon, like you forget about Warren Zevon because we don't hear it in the studio.
Through the magic of radio, we don't hear it. So
it brings a tear to my eye. I'm like, wow, this is. I'm going to listen to this show, and then when, of course, I hear my own voice, I'm like, this is great.
Oh my God, that guy's golden-throated hero. Listen to that. Listen to that voice. Oh my God, yes.
And then if I'm fortunate enough to get to watch the show, watch it is even better because what I've found is that many years ago, being from New York, like there's this kind of stipulation or this thing that people like attribute to people in New York is that they talk with their hands.
Oh, yes, they do.
And I never really thought I was like a talk with my hands kind of person until I watched TV. I watched myself on TV, and then it's all hands. And unfortunately, I don't get to see it on the radio, but everything is framed up with hands.
Well, probably much like yourself. You in this business, you always find yourself talking about yourself, right? Talking about what you do for a living, talking about your planning, talking about your opportunities, talking about your firm, talking about ideas, or so you're always giving a seminar or a presentation or something like that. And I agree with you. If you do a lot of them, I think you do. You go to these presentations and somebody always puts a podium or a lectern out, right?
Yeah.
And so as soon as they put that out, I think to myself, all right, I'm not going to be behind that because I'm a mover when I talk.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hands are going, legs are going, mouth is going. It's all moving together. I got to be moving around the room. I'm like a cat, like pacing the cage. When I'm doing a presentation, talking about stuff. I know what you're saying.
That being said, I as I'm watching the both of us, I feel I'm like Jay really is way better at not wiggling his hands around and do it. And so I attribute that to the courtroom. I attribute that at some point in time you were in a courtroom and a judge slapped you and said, "Hey, counsel, stop with the hands. Cut it out, right?
Right.
I can hear you. You don't have to. I don't need all the animation. Just say what you want to say and then move on."
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's right. You're not one of those things on the side of the road that's going up and down, up and down. Let's dial it in.
Like out in front of a used car lot or something?
That's right. Don't break the plane, okay? Keep it tight. Have a conversation. That's fine. You can certainly use your gestures to emphasize a point, but let's not get carried away.
Or the Liberty tax guy, like
that's
that.
That's right. Spinning the sign,
Statue of Liberty.
that whole thing. Yeah, that's right. So that's what we should do. We should do a whole, show outside, spinning signs with words and everything.
And no, I'm in. oh, absolutely. That could be the best. That could set us. That could put us in a different category, a different league. We just moved into the big leagues. Right?
Oh, it's the big leagues, all right.
Because something will happen, right? There'll be something that'll happen. There'll be some kind of there's some event that someone will capture on video and it'll go viral, and the next right. So good publicity, bad publicity. It's all publicity.
That's right.
And
there's no such thing as bad publicity.
And there we go.
Yep, that's right. I don't care what you think about me as long as you think about me, right?
The other thing I noticed as I was watching one of our shows on Cable Access TV, the Holliston, the genius of Holliston Cable Access TV. They have the ability to edit it, right? So they, of course, because it's not live on TV, so they edit it. And what I noticed in the show is they edited this whole first segment, the whole hey, we're talking about you talking about moving with my hands.
So if there's any heavy editing that goes on, it's around this particular portion of the show.
Don Cronin is editing this right now.
All right,
Christian, do you edit it? Who edited it? You do.
Christian
Whoa.
says,
So he's on the, so now it's kind of coming clear that you're not putting all the good stuff. Did they tell you to?
they just said, he just got an email that said, edit the banter.
Edit
the banter. Edit the banter out. That's right. He
Well,
says,
we're going to talk about this
I had
in
to
the break.
sit through it once, and I'm not
We're
subjecting
talking about it in
everybody
the
else
break.
to it
Yeah,
a second
this is
time
the
around.
good stuff. This is the real stuff.
So were
This
you
is
at
real.
home this week say to the kids, okay, kids, you're going to make a choice. You can either watch Money in the Law on cable access
Or Game 2 of the World Series.
That's right, or the Red Sox game. Take your pick, which one. I'll tell you what, we'll go back and forth, all right? Slow periods in the game, we'll move back and forth. So.
Unfortunately, my TV doesn't have picture-in-picture, which I would have.
Have
I mean,
both
why?
up? Sure you
why
would.
not?
Of course you would. Yep. Cool. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Yep.
Well,
yep.
if you and in all seriousness, if you want to catch a show, you can go to our website at moneyinthelaw.net, and you can see we have a couple of old shows, actually some pretty good shows on
yeah.
there. So by all means, go check it out. You can also go to the House and Cable Access TV website, and you can get a whole bazillion shows.
There's some gold in there. There's some gold in their hills, and them there hills.
There's
Yep.
a lot of gold in there.
So what are we talking about today? Any idea? You just kinda-
No. I have a really good idea. What I want to talk about today
Go
is
ahead.
estate recovery.
Of course you
I want to talk because I feel like we've been talking a little bit money side, but I want to talk about the legal. And I
appreciate
do
that. It's
I
nice.
do love the idea of estates. We actually we like to talk about things that happened recently. So one of my clients who unfortunately passed away earlier or the beginning of the year. I was just visiting with his family and how the estate and the estate settlement and how all that's happening now.
And this is a component of the estate settlement that we're going to talk about, and I'll bring it up in a couple of different ways. But the concept of estate recovery is essentially this idea of if somebody passes away, you have to file a probate petition with the probate court, but you also have to let the state know that you've filed this probate petition. And why do you have to do that? Because the state giveth and the state taketh away, right? So what they want to do is they want to know, is there a chance for us to get paid back some money that we may or may not have paid out, right? So that's the concept. So the reason I say this is when people say to me, when we do planning, I don't want the nursing home to take all my money. Well, this is how if that's what people's concern is, this is how the nursing home takes your money. The nursing home doesn't take it. The state takes it on behalf of the nursing home. This is how it works, right? So
Because the state's paying the nursing home.
that's exactly right. So we'll talk about this a little bit to figure it out. But the reason it's important is, believe it or not, there are some cases that make it worthwhile to think about doing that, and then there are some reasons to maybe not do it. But we're going to talk about this idea and the process and what it means and kind of how you get there, so that people have an understanding of what that process looks like. And by the way, we're only doing that because I don't believe it's going to be me, but had I won the $1.6 billion
Which you didn't.
Powerball, but I didn't. South Carolina.
Which I mean, believe it or not, you didn't. Which I thought for sure you were going to.
And you know what I don't do? I don't check the numbers. Okay, this is what I do. I put the ticket away, right, and then I wait and see, because if I did win, okay, the Globe would have had a story today that says the winning ticket was sold in Massachusetts.
And
it was sold
Central Cafe
That's right.
in Holliston.
And it was sold in Holliston, Mass. And then I might go and say, let me take a look and see if
Can you
if
imagine?
that could be me, right?
I mean,
I like to let the build up. So it didn't happen, so that's why we're talking estate recovery.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine if that were? I mean, just that alone would be worth the price of admission. Just the excitement of we found out the winning ticket was sold in Massachusetts, and even if they said Massachusetts, then you're like, it's definitely me.
Yep.
And then if they said Holliston, Massachusetts, then you said there's only 14,500 people in Holliston, so who?
It's
obviously
absolutely me.
It's absolutely me. The odds are so in my favor.
And then when
at
they
that point,
nailed down that it was sold at a mobile gas station,
which you happen to buy your ticket at,
and I'm like,
right,
oh
right,
man, oh man. So
right.
it's either
and then
me,
it turns out, right, and then it turns out that it's Christian Bidet that actually
who was in front of
bought the
me in line
Right.
buying a
Who
pack
bu-
of
who got
smokes and Marlboro Red high pack, and
He
a
was
ticket.
buying them for his buddy in the car.
Yep.
It's
Well,
not
I was
fair.
behind him in line, and it was one of those like, let me get Marlboro Red Hot pack, this Monster Energy drink, pack of Newports.
How come you guys don't sell beer?
And then-
down in Milford they sell beer.
And then I have to sit through. He's picking the numbers. Like, I'll take two. Give me two number twos. Has anybody hit on the number fours?
Yeah.
All right, they have. All right,
spit-
I'll take a number 6.
He picks $240 worth of $20 scratch tickets. Yeah,
Yeah,
and one quick pick.
That's right.
Yeah.
Spread across a collection of scratch tickets. Right.
Right.
It was like
Right.
it was just watching.
You know
him
what?
Assemble that together.
I'm filling out my numbers right now. Just give me a ticket. I'll fill it. Hold on a second.
Some
Hey,
people work in oils. Some people work in clay. Christian works in scratch tickets. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. What a. Just,
I mean, it wasn't a question of if he was going to win.
the
It was
master
just
at work.
a question
the master
of when.
at work.
Yeah.
That's a joke, by the way.
So
I didn't-
unfortunately, Christian, he too did not win the lottery.
no.
Not this one. He
No.
didn't win this one,
No.
but you know,
well, he
there's
won the lottery when he started taping the show.
more to
Let's
follow.
really call it like it is, right?
yeah.
All right, so we'll be back in a couple of minutes. We'll talk a little estate recovery.
What are we talking
And yeah, that's right. Back to what we're talking about. We'll be back in a couple of minutes talking a little estate recovery because nobody here won the $1.6 million lottery. So
I have a client in South Carolina, though. Maybe,
maybe.
I'll have to check that
Yeah,
out.
that's
All right.
right.
We'll be
All
right
right.
back.
All right, get back. Money Law, My FM 101.3. J. Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. And we are talking all things money and all things the law.
Mostly the law.
And mostly the law today. I must have.
All right, so here, before we get started,
Okay.
we're talking about estate recovery tip. Before we get started, I want you to work with me to slow things way down.
Let's
okay?
slow
Because
this
here's what
roll.
happens.
All
Here's what
right.
happens. My partner, and I will say this, and I say this with the utmost sincerity. He is an excellent lawyer, and not only is he an excellent lawyer, he is a statesman. He is a public servant. He does a great job. But when you are on a roll, when you are talking about something that you are into, you can talk fast. All right, so I want you to slow it. I'm not
All right.
saying
No, that's a good point. Actually, that's a very good point. Somebody called my office this morning, talked to my paralegal, and said to the paralegal, tell Jay I called, have him give me a call back. When I get him on the phone, he talks really fast.
See,
and I
and,
said,
and it's not your fault. It's
No.
it's enthusiasm.
Passion.
It's enthusiasm.
Passion
so
for the
so
law.
I'm just saying for me today with this because this is
All right.
this is the law. This is the law show today.
all right, we'll slow it down.
Slow it down.
All right,
slow
we'll
it down
slow
for
it
me.
down.
Yeah. So
All right.
here we go.
All right, so here we go. So we're talking about the concept of estate recovery. So essentially, estate recovery is where, if there is, for purposes of this discussion, a probate estate, which means you have to file a probate petition with the probate court to track down an asset, you have to let the Division of Estate Recovery for Mass Health, Medicaid, know that you're doing this. And the reason is because they will send you a very nicely worded letter. Thank you very much for filing for this probate petition. We have the ability to recover. If we've paid money towards somebody's care, okay, we're going to raise our hand and say we're owed some money. Now,
So, but let me.
Go ahead.
So if that's. So this is. What if I didn't? What if I didn't? What if there was no Medicaid situation? Or do I still have to do this? I mean,
well, everybody who files a probate petition, no matter what you think, you have to let the state know that you're doing this.
So when you say a probate petition, what is that? What define that?
Yeah, so essentially what that means is somebody's passed away, and there's some asset or some collection of assets that were in their name alone, and the only way for you to access those assets is to get yourself appointed as somebody's executor. That's basically what you're doing.
So you're looking for money.
You're looking for money.
We're
Yep.
look-
You're the executor. You're the personal rep. You're whatever you want to call the job, but you're wrapping up somebody's affairs. And so you send off this probate petition, and remember, this is the state's chance to get their bite at the apple. All right. So when you do this, the state will say, "Thank you. Let's go back and check the permanent record."
have a
Right?
lookie.
Your whole life, you say, "Watch out, that could go on your permanent record."
This
Well,
is it.
This is your permanent record. This is it
going
right here.
This is going on your permanent record.
So the state gets out the calculator. They hand the list off to the guy with the green,
smartest,
Yep.
the smartest guy in the room.
Yep. And
the
they
guy,
start-
he multiplies 17s in his head.
That's right. That's right. And they start looking through what did we pay, if anything. Now, where you hear this a lot and where this comes up a lot, and it comes up in a way that makes people very unhappy is the state publishes that abandoned property list, right? And everybody says the same thing. How do you forget about money? Well, here's a list of it.
all the
right?
time.
The state says
Billions of dollars.
Here's all the stuff that people forgot about. So somebody will find their mom's name on it, dad's name on it, some old bank account, an old insurance policy, something's on there, okay? And it might be worth $5,500, right? And it's always enough money to make it worth chasing down, right? So we'll file a probate petition. We'll let the people at Medicaid know that we did this, and then we get a letter from Medicaid that says, thank you so much for the letter.
Oh, by the way.
You have a $5,500 probate estate. We're owed $550,000, right? Mom was in a nursing home for 10 years or whatever. And so
for 30 years.
thank you for finding this money for us. We appreciate it.
It's a
If
start.
you could just write us a check, that'd be great. Now, when I say write a check, if you owe some number, $500,000, $200,000, $100,000, whatever you think you owe, you don't have to reach into your pocket and pay that. But if the estate is more than what you owe, Mass Health is going to want to get paid, right? So if the estate's $200,000 and Mass Health is owed $100,000, they're going to want $100,000.
Yeah. So, but if the estate's so just to be clear, if the estate is worth $100,000 and they're owed $100,000, they're getting that money, right?
Oh yeah.
That's so it's like the state is first in line, right? They're like the first kind of creditor in line in order to collect what's owed to them, and then whatever's left over, then that goes to whatever the probate says, right?
That's right. Now, if the estate is $50,000 and the Medicaid folks say we're owed $100,000, nobody has to go into their pocket and pull that money out. That's not what happens. The state will say, well, your estate's $50,000, you owe us $100,000. So we'll take $50,000. We'll take,
So I got a question.
Go ahead.
So if the estate, so in a situation like that, and they say, well, the estate's worth $50,000 and we're owed $100,000, what will the state of Massachusetts, will they investigate that? I mean, who's making the claim? Is it the probate court that's saying that it's $50,000?
Because yes, what's going to happen?
Someone's going to be like, hey, we only got $50,000. I say, I can't.
Well,
sorry.
that's right. So what's going to happen is you are going to file with the probate court. You are going to file a bond, and on that bond, you should be saying to the probate court, this is what I think the size of the assets are. This is how much money I think I'm going to collect. This piece of real estate worth this much money. The personal estate is worth this much money. And then you're signing a petition with the probate court and under the pains and penalties of perjury to say, look, this is how much we think the estate is worth.
Is that the three Ps?
That's right. That's right. It is painful. But the idea is obviously that you're not going to mislead the court for all the obvious reasons, and you're not going to mislead Medicaid.
You're going to. Bad idea.
That's right. That's right. And so Medicaid can ask for some verification. They can, if there's a piece of property involved, they can ask for some type of an appraisal or things like that to really dial down on it. Where those types of issues that you just mentioned become a problem is when, for example, somebody's up to some shenanigans, right? And they're playing that game, and the state might say, look, we want to see the accounting that you're going to file with the probate court. We want to see the inventory that you're going to file with the probate court. If there's enough there to cover the bill, they don't really have a beef, right? You write us a check and we really don't care. But if you're trying to go to Mass Health and say, well, we only have 50 and we owe you 100, they might say, well, we want to see a little bit more documentation that supports this idea that you don't have the money.
And you remember that guy you referred to earlier with the green visor and the glasses down the end of his nose? That's the guy that's going to figure that out. That's the guy that's going to be like, yeah, no, there's more money. There's and because there, and that's what, like, people are ridiculous sometimes. They're ridiculously stupid. They think, oh yeah, no one's going to figure this out. No one has ever tried to do this before, and that guy's going to be like, watch this, boom, 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 and show you the numbers like as plain as the nose on your face, and you'll be like,
well, you bring up a great point, and people say all the time, what if I just put something else on there? So, as an attorney, the first thing you say is, look, nobody here, right, in this room, at least myself, is going to be party to something like that, okay?
We're not
absolutely not, okay? Absolutely not. So first of all, right now,
yeah.
And I'm not signing, by the way, I'm not signing off as the attorney of record on an estate where you think you're going to start fudging some of the numbers because it's just inconvenient for you to have to pay out these monies, right? That's not going to happen. So again, what people do on their own is a different animal, but yes, to your point, there are the three Ps, and one of those P's is punishment, right? So if you and people always say this to me, well, what happens if I get caught? I said, look, if we're asking that question, we're in uncharted waters.
We're asking the wrong question,
and I'm climbing back in the boat because I don't want to be in the water. Okay, we're not doing this.
You're talking to the wrong lawyer.
That's right. That's right. There may be lawyers that say, yeah, make it up, no big deal. I am not one of them, right? So it's all about doing the right thing here. But the reason that we raise the issue is because it happens now it happens all the time, and people don't necessarily expect it. They just assume, my mother had a house, my mother had money in the bank, my father had this. They just assume that that's all coming their way, and for any number of reasons, they have very little understanding of what somebody's personal, either financial life looks like, or how they've arranged their health care, or whatever they might have done up to this stage in their life. They just may not have forward thought, who could come looking for money, right? And I say this not to be a wise guy. I say this because, like everything, we've talked about this in the show a million times. People are counting up, right? Before you're even wheeled out of the hospital room, they're like, I got 2 pieces of property. I Zillowed 4 of them last week. I know exactly what his real estate holdings are worth. Everybody's so busy calculating and counting up everybody else's money, what they're going to get, that they don't realize that there's this other process. Now, remember, this process applies to the probate estate, all right? So we always talk to people about avoiding probate. If you avoid probate, if there's never a need to file a probate petition, then this never becomes an issue, okay?
Another reason to go visit my estate planning attorney.
So
I'm just saying.
That's right. That's right. But again, there's a lot of things that we try to do with clients ahead of time. And by the way, when we may spend a solid whole 6 months planning for somebody with the idea that we're going to avoid probate, and if we ever have to go down the Mass Health path, the Mass Health people are going to say, by the way, undo all that, right? Because we want you to go through probate, because it's our only chance to get a bite at the apple, right? So if you put houses into trust, or you've put houses into certain ways that they're titled so that those assets don't come back on the table as a probate asset, and then you go and apply for Medicaid, Medicaid's going to say, you're going to take that out of the trust. That has to be held in somebody's individual name, because otherwise we're not going to kind of green light this application, because we want to be able to cash out at the end of the day. And this comes up in all kinds of scenarios. If somebody gets a settlement, Medicare, Medicaid, they will raise their hand and they'll say, there was an accident, somebody received a settlement from an insurance company, we've paid X amount of dollars towards this person's care as a result of this incident, we're owed money. Right?
And that seems like a not, I wouldn't say like super common, but not uncommon, right?
No,
because if you think about it, if someone doesn't have any money, right, and then they end up going to some sort of like long-term care rehab thing, and the state covers that cost, and then and you know how long these settlement cases take. They could take years and years.
Sure.
And then down the road, somebody gets $1 million, from their settlement. Medicaid is say, hey, whoa, we dropped $150,000 on this person
per year.
Yeah, right, for however long, right? And then so that's there, and like we said, they're first in line. And there's other creditors as well, right? There's other creditors that could potentially have some sort of have some sort of lien or something on the estate, but the state, I think, is they're the first ones. And
as you can imagine, they're very much anti-windfall in the sense that it's not going to be a situation where we've been writing the checks and then for some reason or however it happens, you have somehow received a payout, received a settlement, and then they're going to say,
1.6
keep your money. Yeah, that's right. Keep your money. That's fine. So you just need to sort of have this understanding that's what the estate recovery process from an accidental perspective, right? People don't see it coming. They don't realize it's going to happen. They think that there's, again, people will call all the time up and they'll say, we want to chase down this account that we discovered, and I'll say, that's great. Just so you know, you're going to file, you're going to do all the work, and when the work is all done, the state may raise their hand and say, I'm entitled to some portion, all or none. Now, and what's going to happen is the estate recovery part of the process, they're going to assign a caseworker. The caseworker is going to send you a letter. You're going to have their contact information, and they're going to say, thank you for the probate file. We have provided some benefits. We're going to go do our calculation. We're going to figure out what we paid, and then we're going to work this thing out, right?
Yep, and send you the bill.
That's right. and there's some discussion. You certainly, and again, that when you do this, there's a window, right? So it's almost like your tax situation. The state's going to say, look, we want our money within this certain window of time. And if we don't get our money within this certain window of time, then it's penalties and interest starts to pile up, okay? And depending on the reason why the money's not showing up, there's some flexibility, and the caseworkers are all very nice people, and for the most part, when it makes sense and it's reasonable, they're willing to work with you. So they may say, look, I can't do anything about your outstanding obligation, but I can waive your penalties or I can waive this interest because you're in the middle of a challenging probate situation, or there's real estate involved and it's not selling or things like that. So there's some flexibility in here. This is not this is not like a couple of people show up at your car at the parking lot at 11 p.m. some night and say, we're owed some money. You missed your payment, right?
The state doesn't usually operate like that.
Not always. No. Twice a year, 15th and October 15th and April 15th. But other than that, they're usually pretty forgiving.
But they also understand they understand that like you said, and you mentioned real estate. I mean, if the asset is a real estate asset, I mean, for whatever reason, these things, they may not move, or you may not have the liquid money and able to do that, at that given time. Now, that being said, there's also, there's also got to be a timeline where they're like, all right, enough is enough.
Right.
We can, we've granted you, X amount of extensions over time, and now it's time. And that's just because that's the way the government's going to do it.
Well, that's right. And a lot of that, so you use real estate as an example, and we'll talk about that after the break. We'll give you an example of where the estate recovery piece is your friend. But this idea that, if you get a piece of property and it's being sold and it's on a schedule, the MassHealth people know it's out there. They're very intent on making sure that they get their money. But they will also, they'll play ball a little bit. But at some point, if you have a line in the sand and your deal's not coming together, maybe you go to the buyers who are buying the property and you say to them, look, if we extend this any more, it's going to cost me some money. Just like any real estate arrangement, if the deal's not happening because one party over the other party isn't getting their act together, then somebody's going to pay. Right?
Got to give, right?
This discussion starts to happen about who's going to get their checkbook out and what's it going to cost. And
something's got to give.
And my experience has been that as long as you're communicating, as long as you're talking to the caseworker, you're letting them know what's going on, you're keeping them apprised of the situation, they're very, very reasonable. They understand what's going on. They understand that real estate takes time to sell and it doesn't always go as smoothly as we'd like it to go. What they just don't want to do is fall into this radio silence situation, because then they think that something's up or something's going to happen. And if it involves real estate, the MassHealth people, what's going to happen is they're going to have to give you a lien release, right? Because we'll talk about this after the break. But when the lien comes on, when they know that there's some property that's going to be sold and that there's a lien out there, the people who are going to buy your house, just like a mortgage, they want a lien release, right? They want to know that they're getting the house free and clear, right? They don't want to buy your dad's nursing home bill as much as they're nice people. They don't want to take on a $250,000 lien from MassHealth on this property. They want that free and clear. And MassHealth will issue that as part of the process, and that'll get recorded at the registry, just like you would record a discharge of a mortgage. And everybody wants that to happen. So this idea that you're going to sort of you talk about what if I just don't what if I just kind of close my eyes and see what happens on it?
Go to sleep on it.
It's karma, right? It comes around. Eventually, it kind of comes around. It'll find you. It'll find you. So
right, let's go to the break.
Let's go to the break.
All right, we'll be right back. We're talking about estate recovery, which is, as you all know, everybody stay on the side of the road, right? Just don't get back on the highway just yet, because you're going to have to take some more notes. We'll be right back on Money in the Law.
As exciting as you imagine.
My FM 101.3, Holliston Cable Access TV, WMRC First Class Radio, Money in the Law. We'll be right back.
And you're back, Money in the Law, My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Droham, Maine After Financial, Christian Manning the Con. And we are talking the very exciting estate recovery. And what happens, if you have been through the MassHealth process, or you've been through the Medicaid process, and you come into some money, or there's some money in your estate, or there's something that you forgot about, and the state raises their hand and says, hey, we're owed a couple of bucks. Now, we've done some...
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Before
I dive in, go ahead.
I mean, you're not diving in. You're like doing cannonballs.
Cannonballs.
Yeah. So just to be clear, because I'm learning quite a bit on this show. It's a fascinating show. So just to be clear, when we talk about the probate estate, so let's say that I have, for example, let's say I have a revocable trust, and I have $1 million in my revocable trust, which is part of my estate, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so this is all that just because it's inside that trust and that revoke does not go through probate, that is
your gross estate.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
So and let's say I have some probatable assets, like let's say I didn't put my house in the trust. So let's say I have my house is worth $500,000 and I have $1 million in a revocable trust, right?
Yep.
And I have a Medicaid bill. I have a
For some reason, yep.
I have a Medicaid bill for some reason. Then I owe the state money. Is the money that's in my revocable trust? That's fair game to the state, correct?
Well, what's going to happen is Medicaid's going to say we're owed some amount of money.
For whatever reason.
For whatever reason. Now, how that money gets paid, they don't care.
Yep.
All right, they don't care. So from a probate perspective, so let's say, again, whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense, just to illustrate the point. So if you're well,
just if your example doesn't make sense.
That's right. But so the money that's in your revocable trust, that's not a probate asset.
Correct.
So when you file your probate petition with the probate court, and they say, "What's the size of the estate?" The answer is it's a house worth $400,000. That's all it is. Okay. So that now becomes the number, right? Mm-hmm. That's the probate number, and that's the number that MassHealth is looking at. If you owe MassHealth $200,000, you're going to come up with $200,000. Where it comes from,
yep.
Nobody cares. It just has to come from somewhere. If you owe MassHealth $500,000, the answer is, well, I have a $400,000 probate estate. I can come up with $400,000. That's all I can come up with, right? That's how you would look at that. That's how you would view that scenario.
Okay.
And you would say, well, all right, we'll pay the $4 because that's the probate estate, because the rest of it, for probate purposes, doesn't matter. It's like it never happened, right? It's not to worry about. It's not a big deal, right? So where this process can be your friend, as crazy as this is going to sound, in many cases is around things like real estate, all right? And here's why it's your friend.
I love when the state's my friend. I love
friend.
I love when the law is my. It's like the law is
hug
my.
it out with the state and hug it out with the state. So what happens? So when somebody goes on Medicaid, when somebody's getting Medicaid services, and we'll use the nursing home as an example. When somebody's in the nursing home, the private pay rate, if you walk up to the front door of the nursing home and you say, look, I got to put my mother in the nursing home, and how much is it going to cost? The nursing home is going to say, well, it's about $12,000.
It's like
right?
you say, how much is it? And they say, how much you got?
That's it. Well, there's that question.
That's right.
How much private pay resources do you have, right? And the answer is there's a private pay number, and your private pay number is roughly, call it somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000 for a month's stay
per month
at the nursing home.
Real
all right?
money. Yeah.
Now, what many cases will happen is people will come to us and say, look, the only asset that my mother has is a house. Okay? Now, could be a house down the Cape, could be a house on the lake, could be a house just, regular Joe Blow right in the old neighborhood. There's not really a vacation property. It's just mom's house. And for any number of reasons, the people of the family, for mom, they want to keep that house, right? They want to keep she lived down the Cape. It was her primary residence, and they want to keep the house. We'll use that as the example, right? So they want to keep the Cape house. They don't want to sell it. Nobody can really afford to buy it right now, so they don't want to sell it. So they say, well, what happens if she goes to the nursing home? The nursing home is going to take my mother's house. That's what they always say, right? So here's how it works. The nursing home doesn't come in and say, give us the house. Now, you could sell the house.
There's like a task force that comes in.
That's right. There's no Cape Cod nursing home task force.
A moving truck that comes in and starts like moving stuff out.
That's right. That doesn't happen, right? The nursing home is going to say, look, we're in the taking care of people business, all right? We don't care about all this other stuff. All we want to know is, how are you paying for mom's time here at the nursing home? And if the answer is, she has this house, what do? You can either sell the house, which nobody wants to do, and then do something with the money, do something with the cash. Write a $12,000 check every month for X numbers of months until the money's gone, and then apply for Medicaid, right? That's one solution, right? And in many cases, that's the solution suggested by the nursing home, right? Well, you got an extra asset here, you might want to.
But why is that?
Well, because they like the $12,000 a month.
Right.
That's nice.
I know where you're going with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the other option is, well, what about, what is the nursing home going to take the house? No, the nursing home's not going to take the house. But what they're going to say to the family is, well, we can have two options. You either sell the house and write us a check, for example, or you keep the house and you can apply for Medicaid and let Medicaid put a lien on the house. That's the nursing home is going to take my house scenario that everybody's thinking about, right? We're going to lose the house. You don't lose it to the nursing home. you lose it to Medicaid through estate recovery, right? Because Medicaid will say, you want to keep the house on the Cape, that's fine, but we're going to put a lien on it while mom goes to the nursing home. So we'll let her be eligible for Medicaid. We'll approve her, but we're going to put a lien on the house. Now, it sounds terrible.
It sounds ominous.
It sounds ominous, but there's a pro. There's a potential upside to this. And the potential upside has to do with the Medicaid reimbursement rate. We just talked about if you sell the house and you roll up to the front door, Medicaid's going to say, $12,000 a month, mom can stay here. When the money's gone, we can apply for Medicaid. But if you want to keep the house and let Medicaid put a lien on the house, Medicaid doesn't pay $12,000 to the nursing home. Medicaid pays the Medicaid reimbursement rate, which might be half. Wow. Just to ballpark it, right? So instead of 12, they pay 6. Okay? So now, if they're paying 6 and mom has income, you deduct what mom's income is from the 6, right? So Medicaid says, we'll pay $6,000, but mom's got a $2,000 Social Security check and a $1,000 pension, for example, right? So mom's got $3,000 in income. Well, Medicaid would pay the nursing home 6. Mom's kicking in 3, so the delta, the difference, the unfulfilled amount is $3,000.
Which is the lien against my property.
Bingo. That's what goes on the house as the lien.
So let me ask a really stupid question.
No such thing.
Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do that if it's strictly an arithmetic issue? So either I can sell the house that I don't want to sell, and then I can go to the nursing home and I can pay $12,000 a month, which is exactly what the nursing home wants. They're psyched about this.
Thrilled.
Yep. Or I can say, you know what? I'm going to take my chances with the real estate market, and I'll let the state put a lien on that house, and lien for as long as my mother's in the nursing home, and then once for as long as she's there, and then whatever that final bill is, that's it's almost as if it's less whatever the house is worth.
Well, and so the way we explain it to people is you got to think about a couple of things. Number one, if mom lives a long time in the nursing home, in any event, right? In either of those two scenarios, she lives a long time in the nursing home, you're paying privately, you're going to spend all the money. She lives a long time in the nursing home, and you're putting a lien on the property. The potential is that the same exact thing happens, right? The lien amount eventually outpaces whatever the value of the house is. Right. Now, again, you have to do the math, right? $36,000 a year times,
but you're also buying,
she do 10 years in the nursing home, who knows?
But you're buying time, right? If no one can afford, let's say, my sister wants to buy the house,
right?
But right now she can't afford it, but maybe 10 years from now she can.
That's exactly right. So that's depending on the property. That's exactly the discussion that you would have. You'd sit down and you'd say, guys, we can put a lien on the property. If mom goes 2 years in the nursing home, there's a $70,000 lien on the property, okay? So when mom passes, unfortunately, and we go and say, okay, now we want to do something with the house, MassHealth is going to say, well, you can do whatever you want to do with it, but somebody owes us $70,000, right? Mm-hmm. And now the family can say, well, my mother got care at the nursing home, right? She got taken care of the way we hoped that she would be taken care of. She didn't have to sell her Cape house, which was her pride and joy, and where we had, built all these family memories year after year after year after year. And now we have to come up with $70,000, which I'm not saying $70,000 is not a lot of money, but that's a lot less than $240,000 or more that you would have had to come up with on your own, somewhere in the $250 to $300 range out of pocket for the same exact situation. So there are situations where this estate recovery process and this idea that the nursing home is going to take there are situations where that does make sense. Now you ask about, that's when does it work like that? Well, that works when everybody's on the same page, right? Everybody understands what's going to happen. Everybody knows that there still might be a $70,000.
They know there's going to be a big bill at the end.
That's right. That's right.
There's a big bill, and like you mentioned before, the big bill could be the value of the house. So at the end of the day, it could become academic, and you say, all right, well, either someone's going to buy the house, so either we're going to have to sell the house and pay Medicaid because the house is worth $500,000, and we owe the state $500,000. There it is. There's the wash. Now, if I wanted to buy the house, right? Because now remember, and this is important for like understanding, like, you know, when we talk about like the estate and how the estate is divvied up, like in the will, it may say that, you know, all 4 children are entitled to 25% of the house.
Yep.
However, all 4 children are also responsible for 25% of the debt that the estate owes.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, so if my sister wants to buy the house, she's going to pay $500,000 to the state. I'm not getting a dime.
That's right.
I'm not getting. There's no. I don't. My part of the estate has gone to the estate now. Because my sister, you know, so it's not like my sister's buying me out at that point.
No.
My sister would be buying out the state or paying off the debt that's owed to the state.
Right. If you sold that property to a third party, the transaction would be handled just like any other real estate transaction. And on your final settlement statement, there'd be a number, right? It would say Mass Health Estate Recovery Lien. Pick a number, right? $500,000 to your point, right? So they would do all the transactions. The house would sell to a third party, and you guys would end up with bupkis, right? Yeah. You'd get nothing, and they'd get a house, and you guys got rid of the lien that was on the property that you no longer have to worry about. And if you bought it or your sibling bought it, and you mentioned earlier in the show, how does everybody know what the number looks like? Well, this is the classic example, right? When you go to the estate recovery caseworker and you say, "Hey, guess what? We're selling we found a buyer for the house, but they won't pay more than $150,000 for this $500,000 Cape house." Oh, who's the buyer?
Yeah.
Well, I know on paper it looks like they have the same name as me. And they do.
Kate Drohan, I don't know her. I mean,
yeah. What a coincidence. Go figure that the same named person would want to buy this house. It's crazy, right? So that's when they would say, well, and then, what always happens, right? Well, what if the house is really in a state of disrepair? Well, is the house really in a state of disrepair? Well, no. Okay, well, then it's not really in a state of disrepair.
The house worth what it's worth.
House worth what it is. Now, that's when you would, again, if there was a deal to be made, or if you were trying to make a deal, that's when there'd have to be some documentation, right? You'd have to get an appraiser to come in and say, you know what, this is what the house is worth. Does that work? If the house really was in a state of disrepair and mom hadn't done anything and the septic needed to be done over, again, those are reasonable accommodations. You'd have to fix the septic to sell it, so you'd have to have this back and forth and come up with some number with the estate recovery folks. But again, this is a scenario where the idea of letting the nursing home take the house, that concept, while accurate to some degree, there may be a rationale for doing this, right? It may make sense, and I recognize, unfortunately, it's a bit of a mortality play, right? And nobody wants to think about it this way, so the lawyers do, because nobody likes them anyway. But so the lawyers are the ones that are going to ask the question, right? The lawyer's going to say, well, how's your mom doing? How long is she going to live, right? And you say, well, she's pretty frail. She doesn't have her fastball anymore. She's, I don't know how long she's going to live. Now, remember, the average time in a nursing home is like 2.5 years.
So that begs the question of, okay, so let's put it more real. Let's say mom lives in a ranch that's worth $200,000, right? So let's say it's not this $1 million Cape house, right? So mom lives in a ranch worth $200,000. It's all paid off. And we decide to say, okay, we're going to put the lien, we're going to let the state put a lien on the property. And let's say mom lives for a long time, and at the end of, when it's all said and done, her bill to the state is $300,000. House is worth $2 million, the bill is worth $3 million. So we owe the state, the estate owes the state $300,000. All she has is her house. And she paid.
That's so they take two.
They take two and
they walk away.
And it's done.
Yep, they take two and they walk away. That's how it works, right? That's how it works.
So you ask. So really, the question is, why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you do it? I mean, as long as the property had value,
right?
And as long as it's not just it's not going to be it's not going to be it has more than enough value where and you can just do the math. You can say, and project it out. Be ambitious. Say, my mom's going to be in a nursing home for 15 years. If she's in for 15 years, paying whatever the state rate, and that rate will probably change. Does it change? Does it adjust?
It never goes down. So yeah,
it's not going to go down, right?
Right. It's pretty consistent.
So whatever. So if she lives 15 years, and you can kind of do the break-even point. So ballpark of what the house is going to be worth 15 years from now, and say, okay, so either way, it's if anything, it's buying you time at a discounted rate. And as you said, it could be a significantly discounted rate than what you would pay if you said, okay, mom's going to nursing home. Well, we don't have anything. All we can do is sell the house. It's her only asset.
Right. Now, why wouldn't you do this? I think is what started the car. So you wouldn't do this in a couple of reasons. Number one, if the house was really to the point where it was in a state of disrepair and just carrying it was going to be potentially a problem.
Right.
That's a reason why you might not
because all
do
the
it.
costs come along that you
That's
still
right.
you still got to pay the tax. You still
got to
gotta
put
pay,
insurance on
yep,
it.
You
Still
still
gotta-
got to have the septic work. You have to put water, heat, and everything.
Yeah. So that might be a headache. People just might not want to own the property. Just even the numbers aside, owning property with nobody living in it, it can be a hassle, right? So they might say, look, we don't want to do it. The other reason, and this is what comes up a lot, the other reason that you might avoid doing this is there's usually a family dynamic at work. All right? So the ultimate
about the
variable,
old
it's
family
always
money.
family, right?
Yep.
So the idea is that in many of these situations, there's somebody who has eyes on the prize, right? There's somebody who really wants the house. And it's usually for reasons that are financial, right?
Yeah.
And it's usually for reasons that there's always scenarios where
And it's usually your sister. Yeah. No.
it's always the sons.
Jay and I,
First of all, it's always, we always joke, it's always the sons. So never the daughters. It's always the sons, right? As daughters, who are going to own everything that we have at some point down the road.
Anyway,
we
right.
always say it's always the daughters. Right? It's always the sons always cause a problem.
Yeah.
But there's somebody who usually wants the house, financially in many respects is strapped for cash and doesn't really have the ability to contribute all the way through. But they somehow see the house as theirs. It's their birthright. Whether they're living there, they're kind of living there.
I spent the most time there.
I spent the most time there. I mowed the lawn twice.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
I picked it out.
And so if there's dynamics around those types of issues, that's where it gets to the point where you say to yourself, this isn't going to work, right? This isn't going to work. It's not going to happen this way. We just can't do this. There's just too many moving parts. That's where it becomes a problem.
Right.
So those scenarios can be very challenging. But, in many cases, if somebody needs a place to live and they're willing to play a little bit of ball, that could work for you. And to your point, it buys you time. You can, by the way, you can always sell the house. It doesn't have to be a case of we hold on to it and we're stuck with it until mom passes. If you decide you're going to sell it, the Medicaid folks will give you 9 months to sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right away, you almost get 9 months for free, right?
Yep.
If you think you're going to sell the house, right? Mom can be approved. You can sell the house within 9 months, and then as the money hits the table, we got to figure out a plan for the money and what we would do with it. But if you think you want to hold on to the property for any number of reasons, this may be the best case scenario, with the understanding that if mom lives a long time, that number, that estate recovery number, could get really close to eating up all the equity in the property, and it just may not work at that point. But the idea behind, is the nursing home going to take my house? Nursing home, no. Is the estate recovery unit going to tell you owe the value of the house?
Yep.
Yes, they're going to do that. They're going to do that.
Black hooded door kickers coming in. Yep.
That's right.
They'll be rappelling out of helicopters down to your property.
Yep.
Bringing
We smell money.
Three big
money.
moving vans.
Yep.
You come home, everything's getting
Where'd the
moved
curio
back.
cabinet go? Gone.
I wanted that.
That's right. I wanted that. So that's the estate recovery story. Fascinating, huh?
No,
Yeah.
oh no, that very fascinating.
All right, good to
So
know.
but it's one of those things where, like, if you come, again, we always talk about planning. We always talk about that if you come at something and you have a plan and you've thought this through, and even if it doesn't have to be like years and years in advance, but you've had some kind of you have an understanding of, all right, look, here are some of our options, and if you don't know your options, then you can find them out. There's guys like, I don't know, this guy who can help you do things, or your advisor, they can help you to kind of figure these things out. And if you come at it with a plan, then you may be able to, again, in the right circumstances, you may be able to save yourself a lot of money, a lot of money. And at the end of the day, it may be that, because remember, we've always talked about this, how people, most people, like, the people who are elderly, like their tendency is, I want to leave something for my family.
That's right.
I want to leave something for my, and if there's a way that they can do that, because remember, if someone has to go into a nursing home, they have to go into a nursing home. There's no, there's no arguing about that, right? If you're at that stage, then it's time to do it, right?
Well, and if at the end of the day, use your example from earlier, if at the end of the day everybody says, we all thought we were going to get $100,000, we're all going to get, it's a $400,000 house, and we all were going to walk away with $100,000, this is a ripoff. And you say to them, well, all right, but your mom's going to get the care she needs, she's going to get taken care of. and you're going to get $50,000. I mean, I know that's not 100. I get the idea. I understand math, but 50 is not bad, right?
The problem is people put that they and like you said, we start doing the math in our heads beforehand, and we start, we say, oh well, mom's going to go to nursing home, and immediately they think, oh well, what's that going to do? Because people's they instinctively think, well, like you said, the nursing home's going to take all the money.
Oh, we're going to lose it all.
Yeah, we're going to lose it all. And you know what? You very well may lose it all. You very well may not lose it. You may pay for the care, and that's what the going rate is. I mean, it's not like they're just like they're pulling this number. That's how much it costs to running a nursing home.
But there are options. I think the takeaway at the end is there are options, and you want to explore them, like we've always talked about. Have a purpose the way you approach these things. And that will give you a sense of, all right, and if it's important that we try to leave a legacy, we tell people, look, this is your best chance to have potentially mom leave a legacy like she wanted. It's your best chance. If you don't do this, then you're definitely going to write the check.
Yeah.
And same idea, just a question of how long it takes. It's all about time.
Yeah.
So
your legacy might be those savings bonds and that hutch you were talking about.
Curio. Yep. All right, we're going to wrap it up, buddy.
We're going to wrap it up. All right, so everybody, if you have any comments or want to discuss more or want to say Jay did a great job today,
nice. Yeah, critique.
Go to moneyinthelaw.net. Send us a message. You can give us a call. You can reach us there. You can email us there.
We'll answer your questions on air, anonymously.
Anonymously. We won't
to the best of our ability.
We won't use your first or last name, Ken Sawyers. We won't do that. All right.
Nice.
All right. We will see everybody next week here on Money in the Law, My FM 101.3, and the Holliston Cable Access TV, with your host Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group. I'm John Drohan. We'll see you next week.
Go Sox.